I knew something was wrong the moment she smiled without meeting my eyes. We were standing beneath a string of golden lights in the middle of a quiet park. Just the two of us, a violinist a few steps away, and the soft hum of distant traffic. I had rehearsed everything, the words, the knee, the timing of the music, even a small joke to break the nerves. Tonight, I was going to ask her to be my wife. But when I finally looked up, expecting tears or laughter or something, she was texting. Not a quick glance, not a one-handed reply. Both thumbs moving, completely absorbed, like the moment wasn't even happening. Like the months I'd spent planning, the blessings I'd asked for, the ring in my pocket, none of it existed. I tried to laugh it off. "Am I interrupting something?" I asked, voice shaky but warm. She didn't even look up. "1 second," she murmured. That was the second crack. The first had come months earlier at a friend's engagement party when someone toasted to love and timing. And she whispered under her breath, "Not everyone gets the timing right." She brushed it off when I asked what she meant, but I remembered. I also remembered how she'd started checking her phone in the middle of our conversations. How her hugs had grown shorter, her presence dimmer. Love doesn't vanish overnight, but presence does. And when presence fades, doubt rushes in to take its place. I ignored it, until that night. I paused mid-sentence. I hadn't even reached the part about how I loved her crooked laugh or how I knew I wanted to marry her the first time I watched her dance barefoot in our kitchen, wooden spoon in hand, singing off-key. Instead, I just stared at her illuminated face, thumbs moving. The violinist slowed his playing, sensing the pause. In the sudden stillness, I stepped closer, close enough to glance at her phone. She didn't notice. Maybe I wish I hadn't either. A group chat, bubbles of text flashing like warning lights. "He's doing it." Then another, "Help me say no." Time stopped. I didn't speak. I didn't finish my sentence. I just pulled the ring box from my pocket, looked at it, then slipped it back into my coat. My heart wasn't racing. It was slow, heavy. She finally looked up. Shock flickered across her face. Or was it guilt? Panic? Whatever it was, it came too late. I didn't demand an explanation, didn't make a scene. I simply nodded once, turned and walked away. She called my name softly, not enough to stop me, not the way people call when they're afraid they've lost something they love. I kept walking until I couldn't hear the violin anymore, until the air grew colder, until my hands started to shake. I sat on a bench by the river for an hour, maybe 2. I wasn't thinking about what she said or who she said it to. I just kept picturing her face when she looked up and didn't seem surprised to see me leaving. She had known long before I did, known that something inside her had shifted, that our story had ended a few chapters back, and she was too afraid, or too unsure, to close the book. That's what hurt the most. Not that she said no, but that she needed help saying it. That I stood there, ring in my pocket, heart in my hands, and she had already decided. She just didn't want to say it out loud. Later that night, she texted 5 words. "Can we talk about it?" I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. I walked the long way home, past shuttered shops and sleeping houses. I thought about how much of love is unseen. How you can spend years with someone and still not notice the moment they stop loving you back. I didn't cry that night. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it hadn't hit me yet. When it did, it would take more than silence to survive it. Lying in bed, still dressed, I stared at the ceiling and replayed the words on her phone. Not the ones she spoke, but the ones she sent. "Help me say no." That wasn't a joke. That wasn't nerves. That was a confession, typed out before I even bent my knee. Someone else already knew my secret. Someone she trusted more than me in that moment. I wondered if they laughed about it later. I wondered if she'd rehearsed her rejection with them the way I'd rehearsed my proposal alone. The next morning, her name lit up my phone again. "Please talk to me." I didn't. Not yet. I needed space, not just to think, but to feel. I had spent months preparing to ask her to share her life with me. And now, sitting there, phone in my hand, I couldn't tell if I ever really knew who she was. You don't walk away from someone you love that easily. But maybe that was the truth I hadn't wanted to face. We never walked into this love at the same pace to begin with. That morning, I drove to the coast. I needed air that didn't smell like memory, The cliffs were empty, the wind sharp enough to sting. I sat on a bench overlooking the water and, for the first time, let myself ask the questions I'd been avoiding. When did she stop loving me? Was it after that fight in February, the one where I said she was slipping away and she said I was being dramatic? Or was it on those weekends with her old friends when she'd come home smelling like hotel soap and a perfume I didn't recognize? Maybe it wasn't sudden at all. Maybe it happened quietly, one small withdrawal at a time, until I was the only one still reaching across the distance. The signs were there. The way she stopped asking about my day, how she started sleeping facing the wall, her phone always turned face down. The password change, the polite laugh that replaced the real one. I saw it all. I just didn't want to believe what I was seeing. We all want to believe love is enough, that if you give your best, stay kind, faithful and true, it will come back to you. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes love is a mirror, and when one person stops showing up, the reflection breaks. I'd spent so long looking at her through the lens of the man I was trying to be that I didn't see she'd already turned away. By late afternoon, my phone buzzed again. A longer message this time. You caught me off guard. I didn't know how to react. It wasn't what I expected. Can we please meet? I need to explain. She needed to explain. But that word, needed, stuck with me. Because I didn't need anything anymore. Not clarity, not closure. I'd already taken the first step toward peace when I walked away without a word. Still, I wasn't made of stone, so I agreed to meet. We chose a quiet cafe a few neighborhoods away, neutral ground, far from the park, far from what we used to call home. She arrived late, hair pulled back, eyes tired, not from sleep but from guilt, the kind that drains you from the inside out. I stood when she walked in. Old habits die hard. She didn't hug me. We sat. She ordered tea. I ordered nothing. I just waited. I wasn't planning to say no, she began softly. I said nothing. I didn't mean for you to see the message. I panicked. I didn't expect you to propose. I finally spoke. But you told someone you needed help saying no. She looked down at her hands. It was stupid. I was nervous. I didn't know what I wanted. There it was, the truth tucked between her words. She didn't know if she wanted to marry me. She didn't deny it. She just nodded, and somehow that small motion hurt more than anything else. I wasn't angry, just empty, like someone had scooped out everything I'd been building inside and left the shell standing. You could have told me, I said quietly. You could have said you weren't sure. You didn't have to let me find out like that. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't know how. There's a moment in every heartbreak where your soul decides whether it will forgive or fracture. I sat in that pause for a long time. I think you did, I said at last. You just didn't care enough to stop me before I got on one knee. She didn't argue, just nodded again. And that silence, that agreement, cut deeper than any excuse ever could. A week later, I found the ring still in my coat pocket. I couldn't bring myself to open the box. It had been there that night, inches away from her. I remembered brushing my thumb against it during dinner, watching her laugh at a story I can't even recall now, thinking, this is it. This is the moment I'll remember forever. I wasn't wrong. I just didn't know how differently forever would feel. I kept the ring on my desk for 3 more days. Thought about returning it. Thought about throwing it into the river. Thought briefly about one day offering it to someone else. None of it felt right. What do you do with a symbol of a promise never made? That Saturday, I packed it away in the back of a drawer. No big gesture, no goodbye note, just quiet finality, the same way I'd left her. Because heartbreak isn't always loud. It doesn't always shatter or scream. Sometimes it just sits beside you, familiar, heavy, like a coat you forgot to take off. The messages stopped after that. She never called again. And maybe that was mercy. We both knew what hadn't been said over that cafe table. She didn't love me the way I loved her. Maybe she never did. That thought haunted me for a while, not because it made her cruel, but because it made me doubt myself. How could I have mistaken her silence for peace, her distance for independence, her hesitation for humility? It's hard to admit you loved someone who wasn't truly with you. Harder still to admit you stayed because you believed love could fix what was already breaking. A few weeks later, I started therapy. Not because I was drowning, but because I didn't want to. I wanted to understand why I kept reaching for people who didn't reach back. I wanted to learn what love looked like when it was steady and mutual, not performative or uncertain. And slowly, I learned. Love doesn't need a stage. It doesn't demand a perfect speech. Love is quiet presence, honest words, showing up every day, especially when it's messy. That night in the park, I showed up with my whole heart in my hands. She showed up with a phone in hers. I don't hate her. I want that to be clear. I'm not angry, not bitter. I don't wish her pain. I wish her clarity. That she finds someone she doesn't need to text for help when her heart's on the line. As for me, I found peace in the leaving. I thought that proposal would be the start of our life together. But it became the beginning of something else entirely. The day I finally learned to stop convincing someone to stay. It was the day I realized that love, real love, never asks you to beg. And maybe it was the day I started saying yes to myself. The ring is still in that drawer. I don't look at it often, but when I do, I don't feel pain anymore, just quiet gratitude. Because that little box didn't only hold a question, it held an answer too. And I finally heard it.